Betrayal Within: Women Who Killed Their Families. Welcome to Odd Occasions, where we explore the darkest and most chilling corners of human history. Today, we confront a series of stories so unsettling that they challenge our understanding of trust, love, and family. This is about women who committed the unthinkable, those who turned on their own families, taking the lives of the people they were supposed to nurture and protect. What drives someone to such unimaginable acts? Is it madness, desperation, or something even darker? These stories explore the fragile complexities of human nature and the tragic consequences when those bonds are broken. Prepare yourself for a journey into the unimaginable as we uncover 10 haunting cases of betrayal. Number 10. Aubrianne Moore, a psychotic break turned tragic. Aubrianne Moore's life was defined by fear. Fear that poisoned food would kill her, fear that strangers lurked outside her home, and fear that everyday events, like sending her children to school, would lead to disaster. Diagnosed with unspecified schizophrenia, Moore's psychosis consumed her. A single mother to 3 young children, Elena, age 2, Cassidy, 6, and Kyrie, 8. Moore's behavior alarmed those around her. She kept her kids home from school, claiming visions of impending bus accidents. She refused to sleep, convinced someone was trying to break in. Despite her concerning actions, efforts to institutionalize her were slow and ultimately too late. On February 18, 2019, Moore carried out a plan that shocked the small town of Newaygo County, Michigan. Using a forged doctor's note, she pulled her children out of school. She took them to lunch, drove them to her great-grandmother's wooded property, and then lured them one by one into the trees. Using a hunting rifle, she shot each of her children before placing their lifeless bodies into her car. Hours later, she drove to her boyfriend's house and turned the gun on herself in his driveway. The investigation revealed Moore's deteriorating mental state. Family members had been working to remove the children from her custody, but Child Protective Services had not yet intervened. She had stopped taking her medication, and her untreated schizophrenia led to the ultimate tragedy. Number 9. Ethel Geller, Yeldem, I Can't Go On. On May 6, 1930, Ethel Geller Yeldem took her 7 children to a photography studio in Ohio. She wanted a group portrait of her children, an image frozen in time, a haunting last memory. Later that evening, after returning home, Ethel prepared each child for bed, bathing them and tucking them in. As they slept, she shot each one through the heart before attempting to take her own life. A suicide note revealed her despair. I am so tired. I can't go on. Her husband was incarcerated at the Ohio State Penitentiary, leaving her to care for her children alone. Financial struggles and overwhelming isolation likely contributed to her breaking point. Ethel survived her gunshot wound, but died 9 days later from a blood clot. Her case is remembered as a stark reminder of the devastating toll poverty and isolation can take on mental health. Number 8. Jennifer and Sarah Hart, a picture-perfect family's dark secret. To outsiders, Jennifer and Sarah Hart appeared to be the epitome of loving, devoted parents. A lesbian couple who had adopted 6 children, they attended rallies and festivals, presenting themselves as advocates for social justice. A viral photograph of their son, Devontae, hugging a police officer during a protest after the Michael Brown shooting further cemented their reputation as an inspiring family. But behind the facade was a household filled with abuse and neglect. Child welfare complaints followed the family for nearly a decade. Teachers, neighbors, and even family friends raised alarms about the Hart's treatment of their children. One child reported being starved and beaten, prompting a misdemeanor conviction for Sarah. By March 2018, the cracks were widening. When a social worker arrived to investigate fresh allegations, the Harts panicked. Days later, Jennifer, Sarah, and all 6 children were found dead at the base of a 100-foot cliff in Mendocino, California. Jennifer had driven the family's SUV off the edge without braking, her blood alcohol level over the legal limit. Toxicology reports revealed Sarah and 2 children had Benadryl in their systems. Devontae's body was never recovered, though remains of the other children washed up over the following months. The tragedy shocked the nation, exposing the dangers of unchecked child welfare failures. Number 7. Emma Cooper. A vaudeville night turns deadly. In June 1908, Emma Cooper wanted to give her family one last happy memory. She gathered her husband and 6 children for a trip to the Alamo Theater in Cadillac, Michigan, bargaining with the ticket clerk to get them all in for 50 cents. When the clerk told her the deal wouldn't be repeated, Emma cryptically replied, "You won't need to. None of us will come again after tonight." That night, after the family returned home, Emma drugged them with chloroform. As they lay unconscious, she shot each of them in the head before turning the gun on herself. Her son Fred briefly survived, waking in the hospital with no memory of the attack. He died shortly afterward, leaving Emma's shattered extended family to piece together her descent into madness. Number 6. Rachel David, a cult's final tragedy. In the 1970s, Rachel and Emmanuel David lived in luxury at a Salt Lake City hotel with their 7 children. Despite appearances, their life was anything but normal. Emmanuel believed he was God, and his cult-like family lived in isolation, rarely leaving their room. In August 1978, Emmanuel committed suicide by piping exhaust into his truck, leaving Rachel and their children adrift. Days later, Rachel threw her children one by one off the hotel's 11th-story balcony before jumping herself. Only one child, 15-year-old Rachel, survived. Witnesses described younger children clinging to the balcony bars, resisting their mother, while older siblings seemed resigned to their fate. Rachel's exact motives remain unknown, though family members believe the loss of Emmanuel pushed her to the edge. Number 5. Judy Kirby, a head-on collision. Fueled by despair. On March 25, 2000, Judy Kirby made a decision that would result in one of the deadliest car crashes in Indiana's history. Driving the wrong way on Indiana State Road 67, she reached speeds of 160 kilometers per hour, 100 miles per hour, before colliding head-on with a minivan carrying 4 people. Inside Kirby's car were her 3 young children and her nephew. The impact killed 7 people, leaving behind a scene so devastating that first responders described it as one of the worst accidents they'd ever encountered. But this was no accident. Investigators found evidence that Kirby's actions were deliberate. Her family later revealed that she had been battling postpartum depression and was overwhelmed by relationship issues. A defense attorney claimed she also suffered from an undiagnosed thyroid condition that exacerbated her mental state. Despite these claims, a jury convicted Kirby of 7 counts of murder and other charges. She was sentenced to 215 years in prison. Her tragic and senseless act leaving a wake of grief for the families of the victims. Number 4. Alma Mae Kepley. Macintyre, the mother who ran out of options. On Halloween night in 1937, Alma Mae Kepley Macintyre carried out a horrifying plan. While her husband sat in jail for petty crimes, Alma used a breech-loading shotgun to systematically kill 5 of her sleeping children. One by one, she reloaded the weapon, aimed it at their heads, and pulled the trigger. When the gun ran out of shells, she left her 2 oldest sons alive, simply because she had no more ammunition. The following morning, Alma's teenage sons returned home to find their siblings dead and their mother's body alongside them. A suicide note revealed her despair. "I have stood all I can take." Her husband, devastated by the loss, claimed he had feared something terrible might happen, as Alma had struggled with her mental health for years. The Macintyre family was buried together in a shared grave, a tragic testament to one woman's descent into hopelessness. Number 3. Tracey Shaw, fire, despair, and denial. On the morning of December 23, 1994, Tracey Shaw stood outside her Philadelphia row house, cradling her 5-month-old son and screaming, "My babies! My babies!" Flames engulfed her home, killing her 4 other children and 2 babysitters inside. But as investigators combed through the wreckage, they began to suspect the fire wasn't an accident. Testimony from an ex-boyfriend revealed a chilling threat. Shaw had allegedly told him she would burn the house down and kill her children if he left her. Shaw denied responsibility, claiming the fire was set by her ex in an act of revenge. However, a jury found her guilty of 6 counts of first-degree murder, sentencing her to life in prison. While Shaw continues to maintain her innocence, the devastating loss of life remains a haunting chapter in Philadelphia's history. Number 2. Elizabeth Gregor, a family destroyed in an instant. On a summer night in June 1963, Elizabeth Gregor made a call to the local coroner with a cryptic message, "You'll see when you get here." Hours later, she used a 12-gauge shotgun to kill her husband Joseph and their 5 children. The chilling scene revealed that Gregor had planned the murders meticulously. She shot her children, ages 19 months to 14 years, while they watched television or slept in their cribs. After killing her husband as he walked through the door, she turned the gun on herself. Police discovered letters that hinted at her spiraling mental state. Despite seeing a doctor for a nervous condition, Elizabeth had managed to conceal the depth of her despair from friends and neighbors. Her seemingly ordinary life ended in an unspeakable tragedy that left an indelible mark on her small Pennsylvania town. Number 1. Frances Newton, a case shrouded in doubt. On April 7, 1987, police were called to the Houston apartment of Frances Newton, where they found her husband Adrian dead behind the couch, and her 2 children, Alton and Farah, shot in their beds. All 3 had been killed with a .25 caliber gun. Newton became the prime suspect when investigators learned she had recently taken out $100,000 in life insurance policies on her husband and daughter. Police also discovered a gun matching the caliber of the murder weapon that Newton had stashed in a bag near a relative's home. Prosecutors painted a picture of a woman driven by financial desperation. But Newton always maintained her innocence. Her supporters pointed to possible contamination of evidence. Newton's clothing had been stored with the victim's bloody clothes, making retesting impossible, and argued that Adrian's own connections to drugs and debt had been ignored as motives. Despite her appeals, Newton was executed by lethal injection on September 14, 2005, becoming the first black woman executed in Texas since the Civil War. Her case remains controversial, with advocates continuing to question the evidence that sealed her fate. Thank you for joining us on Odd Occasions, where we delve into the eerie and extraordinary. These stories remind us of the hidden struggles and despair that can lead to unimaginable tragedies. If you found this episode compelling, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and we'll see you next time on Odd Occasions.